The king predator seemed to have detected danger. It jumped aside and moved around cautiously. Just as the defense team was about to go forward to surround it, Hurlus suddenly said, "Leave this brute to me. You guys go to other places. Leave to you. Who are you? What if you fail?" The troops, of course, did not trust others easily, but before they continued to move, strong pugilist flames burst from this armored warrior, and a change occurred that left every Sunil in shock. The humble suit on Hurlus' body suddenly shapeshifted, and the compressed armor plates expanded, turning into countless complex and precise armor pieces. With the flashing of light, the tights quickly became extremely complex silver-gray armor, like a gorgeous ancient knight's armor. Soft white metal extended from the shoulders like a piece of cloth, moving in the wind like a cape behind his back. Even with the great mechanic hand's very picky sense of beauty, this style was impressive. All the Sunils were stunned. A word deeply buried in their memories started to surface, and countless soldiers opened their eyes even wider. This is the commander-class armor, the strongest armor of the race that was said to be lost. Every soldier was stunned and shocked. Their mind was blanked. Commander-class armor was a legend to the Sunils at this time, and the legend had become reality that day. Hurlus twisted his neck, and the familiar thick pugilist energy flew through his entire body. The dormant fighting genes in his body gradually awakened. This tailor-made armor was still in perfect condition. I almost forgot this feeling. It feels quite good. With a loud yell, Hurlus held the 10-meter battleship slicing blade and pounced as fast as a phantom. The thick light from the blade flashed like lightning. Swoosh! An impact wave came out of the blade, creating a trench dozens of meters long. The position of hunter and prey switched instantly. Splitting up was certain. The Independence faction had made up their mind for leaving. Understandably, the Guardian faction was shocked and angry. They could have defended the race together, but now there were people who had betrayed them and were leaving. Furthermore, they had heavily smashed what they had once protected. The Guardian faction was emotional, and they questioned the deserters loudly. "You're a Sunil, too. In the brink of danger, how can you abandon your race?" Furnaz was expressionless. "My race, my looks, my life form, these factors that were decided from the moment I was born cannot decide my mindset and standpoint. I have made my contributions, and now I want a new life." The Guardian faction still wanted to question them, but they saw that the faces of the Independence faction had absolutely no signs of regret or shame. Speechless, the words of accusation became stuck in their throats. The people they were facing were all brothers who had once fought alongside them. They had all shed sweat and blood. They were not enemies, just comrades that were taking a different path. They were not in a position to accuse the Independence faction. Everyone had their own desires. The Sunil soldiers and the Guardian faction silently stared at their shrinking backs. This time, every Sunil seemed to see the dark and gray future. The sound of sobbing started faintly, and even the soldiers who did not fear even death were tearing up. This was the collapse of the spiritual pillar in their hearts. In all these years, the supers guarding the race had become spiritual totems and motivation for the Sunils. Sometimes, the collapse of the spiritual pillar can have a blow even heavier than an exterior disaster on a group. In front of countless soldiers, Hurlus took off his helmet slowly and took a deep breath. "My name is Hurlus." To the entire Sunil race, this catastrophe was full of twists and turns. The Guardians split up after the battle, but the legendary commander-class armor appeared again when the hidden Grade B super called Hurlus stood up to protect the race. After a few days in his new role, the media spread Hurlus' experience all over, building him up as a hero that stood out in the time of need. It was also reported that the research lab would receive more funding after receiving the commander-class armor, hoping that the race would one day get back the technology of the commander-class armor. Thus, they managed to use Hurlus in their future plans to wash away the impact from the mass desertion. With the army and the leaders working together to spread the word, Hurlus' name was known everywhere, gradually becoming a new role model for the race. After the rewards were given, the mercenaries left one after another, but Han Zio stayed in Forest City. The players stayed for a few days and got a little impatient. "I thought you'd find me sooner. It was delayed by something. I had to fully cooperate with the military for publicity and lend the armor that my older brother left me to the research institution. Do you believe I'm a foreseer?" Hurlus' eyes were sparkling. "Did you foresee the future of me protecting the race long ago, and that was why you came to contact me?" "Of course, I didn't know a bar owner is actually a hidden Grade B super, and I also didn't know that he would wear a commander-class armor called Shattered Light to fight the catastrophe," Han Zio said mockingly. Hurlus smiled bitterly. No one knew his armor was called Shattered Light, so the Foreseer identity was proved. Yet, that left him with another question. How many things can you foresee? How far can you see into the future? He stared at Han Zio and said in a low voice, so, what is your real motive? The atmosphere suddenly became intense, and faint flames flickered around Hurles. He felt that Han Zio definitely had a goal, or else he would not have exposed his foresight. Let me tell you a story. In a planet where its surface civilization lagged behind, there was a handsome man who was a test subject. One day, he went through an experiment, awakened the ability of foresight, and saw many pieces of the future. Relying on his foresight, he escaped successfully and gained freedom. Then he destroyed the evil enemy of this planet, becoming a legend known throughout the entire planet. However, at this time, he saw a new future. A man-made disaster from the sky would fall on his mother planet. The people behind it hid in the depths of the universe, so he left the planet and stepped into a broader world, searching for ways to save his mother planet. Naturally, I am that handsome man. Hurles suddenly could not keep a serious face, and his lips started twitching. He did not know if calling oneself like that was common in the galaxy, but it was shameless in the Sunal culture. We are from different races, so it's normal to have aesthetic differences, Han Zio said. Okay. After being momentarily stunned, Hurles suddenly remembered what they were discussing. So, you're saying that you entered the universe to save your mother planet. What does that have to do with Sunal? Han Zio smiled. My mother planet is located in the Garten Galaxy, soon to face a disaster. I think you Sunals are more than familiar with the name of the people behind it. Hurles blinked a few times, then his expression suddenly changed. Dark Star. He suddenly felt that everything made sense, and everything was connected. Dark Star was their common enemy, therefore, he came to Sunal. I helped you not only because we will share the same tragic experience, but also because I'm looking for an ally. Since you know why I came, you don't have to worry anymore. Hurles' expression softened, and he was immediately filled with respect for Han Zio. So, you're the same as the Guardians of Sunal, a hero wanting to protect his planet. Without any blushing, Han Zio said with humility, I'm not a hero. I just have responsibilities on my shoulders. Upon understanding Han Zio's reasoning, Hurles' expression softened. He paused before asking the question that he had been curious about. What's my future like? You. Han Zio picked his ear, tutted, and said, you sacrificed yourself during the catastrophe, dying a horrible death. Oh, how horrible. Hurles' face froze. From the parts I saw, the beast wave breached Forest City. You firmly defended the opening and fought till your last breath, using up all your energy. Alas, you were torn apart by the beast wave. Hurles was surprised. He knew himself too well, and protecting the race was taking on a supposed responsibility. However, he definitely did not have the strength to never retreat even in his last breath. If he met lethal danger, he would run away immediately. How could he become so firm? How far in the future is that? With a shrug, Han Zio said, do you think I'm some spirit emperor who's worshipped by the ethereal sect? I'm just a normal foreseer, not all-knowing. Sunal's current situation is very bad. The catastrophe is the most obvious danger, and the retreating route toward Godara is unsafe. Plus, Dark Star is hiding in the darkness. If you rise up again, you might face Dark Star's attack. Han Zio gave a simple analysis, and Hurles' expression gradually turned grimmer. The Sunals faced danger from everywhere. Hurles could not figure out a solution, only feeling that the road ahead was filled with darkness. That means Sunal has no way out. Of course not. The way out has always been obvious, but you people subconsciously did not think in that direction. Han Zio smiled knowingly. Obvious. Hurles was a little surprised. He frowned and thought for a while. Suddenly, his eyes widened, and he exclaimed, you're saying to destroy Dark Star. If Dark Star is destroyed, the largest threat will no longer exist, but we are incapable of that. Hurles widened his eyes. He did not expect Han Zio to be this ambitious. This idea was completely insane. Dark Star has destroyed the home of many civilizations, Han Zio said calmly. They're notorious in the Garten Galaxy, and even in the entire Colton star cluster. Comparing them with you people is like comparing a giant to an ant. However, they're not invincible, or they would not hide from Godara. You people have always ignored this possibility, and it's because of nothing other than the fear toward Dark Star, which is now deep-rooted in your hearts. Dark Star has many enemies. There are potential allies everywhere. Other than this path, you can only join Godara. You really are daring. In the late stage of version 2.0, Planet Aquamarine's players would start to enter the galaxy through guidance from a galactic organization. Han Zio wanted to replace that galactic organization and become a mentor. The players knew nothing as they took their first steps into the vast galaxy, so it was the best time to be convinced. If he could give them guidance in a similar way to when he guided the new players in the novice village, he would be able to guide the players into their next area of activity. Hanzio wanted to turn his own faction into the faction that the players joined after they entered the galaxy, to make it a compulsory part of their player career. If he succeeds, he could have every player in planet Aquamarine join his faction. The players not only needed benefits but also good stories. Only then would they feel the role-playing part of a role-playing game, hence feeling a sense of belonging for the faction. Therefore, Hanzio decided to shape a common enemy, and Darkstar was the most suitable target. Working together to fight against a common enemy was the easiest way to develop a sense of belonging. Thus, the Sunal race, which had a deep-seated hatred toward Darkstar, was a very suitable ally. Furthermore, by introducing NPC organization areas to the players by the mercenary group, it could develop a blurry sense of territorial awareness in the players, which would also indirectly increase the attractiveness of his faction. Emotions like a sense of belonging could bring many long-term benefits, even exceeding the attractiveness of the reward itself. Players were the representatives of chaos, and the great mechanic Han always did everything that he could to shape himself as one of them among the players, to become a shadow that followed every step that the players took in their gaming career. Developing a faction was a key component to achieving this target. In Forest City, one of the military bases was open as a recruitment site. After the catastrophe, it was the time for new soldiers to join the army again. Youngsters coming of age had to join the compulsory military service and undergo military training. Youngsters came one after another, accompanied by their parents. Lana was very early. He was only allowed into the recruitment site after displaying his ID card. "Sir, I'd like to request to join the army." The officer looked up and glanced at him. "Do your parents know?" "No." "Youngster, your parents definitely warned you not to join the army, didn't they?" "Yes, sir, but I believe I'm making the right decision." "Once the request is approved, you have to be fully responsible for your decision," the officer said coldly. "You won't be allowed to take it back, are we clear?" "Crystal clear." A slight smile appeared on the officer's cold face. He opened the drawer, inside which was a thick stack of army application forms. He took one out and passed it to Lana. Lana was about to take it, but he realized that the officer was holding onto the application form too tightly. At that moment, the officer said coldly, "This is your last chance to change your mind." Lana snatched the application form with a firm expression. "Good, the area to join the army is at that side. Don't block the people behind." Lana followed the officer's finger and looked over. It was an empty warehouse that served as the recruitment site for the official army. Youngsters waiting to fill out their application forms had already filled the entire warehouse. Holy! The player's jaw almost dropped on the floor. They were stunned. "The captain has abducted the hero of a race. Why did you join us? What's your class?" They were very curious about this new friend and overwhelmed him with questions. Hurles was surrounded in the middle and felt the passion from his teammates. He was very not used to it, and he was forcing a smile. The result of the detection from players was all question marks. They were very curious as to how Hanzio got in touch with a grade B super. This was someone who was at the top of high-level areas, probably the strongest in their mercenary group. Someone who was even stronger than Hanzio joining their faction had made the players very excited. After a month on planet Sunal, Hanzio and the others finally returned to Jubilee Hub. 2 days later, Hanzio had built 6 sets of enlistee-class armor. The players could not wait to equip them, and they instantly felt the benefits of the armor. Single-unit armor was something that most civilizations would research on when they reached a certain technological level. Its original purpose was to let users have stronger physical capabilities and adapt better to different environments. Rainy Kim frowned and said, "Piles of iron. They look so ugly." All the male players stared at her. It was the first time that they had shared a common enemy. "You don't know SHT. The mechanical suit is men's romance." After playing with the armor for a while, only then did the players remember to compare the attributes between the Sunal soldier armor with the armor in the shops, and the result was that it was almost the same. Same quality, a quarter of the price. This was more than worth it. The players were over the moon. Hanzio smiled. There was more. Right after, he added a new option in the faction shop page, equipment enhancement. Hanzio had held back when he built the armor. Their attributes were just the basic version. This was to provide room for enhancements so that he could open another revenue stream. Repairs and enhancements were long-term incomes. As a firm supporter of the great mechanic Han, Frenzied Sword was the first one to buy the enhancement. The attributes of the armor increased by around 10% after the enhancement. Multiple enhancements of the same equipment would have an increased cost. As for the enlistee class armor, the first enhancement only cost 60 INAs, the second cost 100, and the third 150. Every fourth enhancement in a row, the price would have a big leap from the previous one. The fourth enhancement costs 300. The attributes increased by 8 to 12% every enhancement. It was low cost, high profit, and Frenzied Sword vouched for it. He was having a great time selling, while Hurles was speechless. He found Hanzio and said with surprise, "How do you know our single-unit armor technology?" He had built Sunil's armor, which would definitely make Hurles question him. Hanzio laughed and said, "I derived the blueprint during battlefield repairs. Aren't I very skilled?" Hurles' face twitched. Hanzio had stolen Sunil's technology, yet he had asked a Sunil to complement his skill. Even his battleship slicing blade could not cut through skin this thick. The Colton Star Cluster area only had 8 mechanic class advancement knowledges, and Hanzio glanced through and swiftly chose 2. Selling at 25,000. Selling at 37,000. Learning. You have received a new class, plus 100 energy, plus 3 dex, plus 2 end, plus 4 int. You have received 5 free attribute points. You have received 1 potential point. You have acquired skill. You have acquired skill. The energy in his body was cheering. His class advancement made Hanzio feel like he had broken through some kind of shackle. His vision became black, and it felt like hours had passed. However, it was actually only half a second. His vision then recovered, but it was very different with before. He could sense much tinier things. Every time his strength increased, he felt like he had been reborn. Data mechanic was also called experienced mechanic. His understanding of machinery became even better. The machinery affinity at this period would make a huge leap, and among the 4 new abilities that he had just received, and were both able to largely increase machinery affinity. Machinery affinity was a key attribute of the mechanic, representing the speed, attributes, and power of building and using machinery. Was an active skill, and after activating it, he would enter a special magnetic vision. His magnetic property energy would become his extended senses, revealing the details of the machinery with a magnetic field. Hanzio immediately leveled up this skill to LV10. Its effect was a 25 to 50% increase in machinery affinity with a 20 energy cost per minute. As its cost was very low, this skill could be activated almost continuously. A sickle-shaped sword was resting on the workbench to the right. This weapon was nearly 2 meters in length and looked like the scythe used by the Reaper himself. Hanzio held the scythe, and a burst of energy snaked out from his palm into the handle. The next moment, a blinding ray of electrical light shot out from the handle, and lightning-like patterns could be seen all over the blade of the weapon. The scythe's blade gave off a faint bluish glow while giving humming noises. Hanzio casually swung his hand and left a crescent-shaped afterimage, with sparks of electricity remaining in the air, as if the air itself had been burned apart. He had been able to produce this original weapon by combining the blueprint of some sort of mechanical scythe with the incisor gloves using the electromagnetic blades theory. This was his own creation and suited his own combat style. It had a more than formidable attack power and was going to be his new main melee weapon due to his recent increase in strength. Other than that, he also gave Amphipter a major upgrade. The exoskeleton was outfitted with a thick armor, making it look like the armor of a heavily armored knight. The double layer of armor made the suit taller than 3.5 meters. Both the defensive and damage output had been improved. This was his trump card for assaulting heavily fortified positions head-on and would not be used all the time. Suddenly, a local news agency building sounded an emergency alarm. Breaking news. A team of Silvers were attacked by scavengers during their travel in the Shattered Star Ring. Some of them were kidnapped. From our intel, the point of attack was Colton Star Cluster, Fawn Galaxy, Star Zone 4. The size of the scavenger pack is unknown. The escaped Silvers are now hiring mercenary groups to save the remaining Silvers with a high reward. This information got Hurles' attention. The Silvers. This race was from the Silver Spirit Sea that was far away. It was the race of Universe Royalty. Some powerful and advanced civilizations were called the Universe Royalty. The 3 universal civilizations that colonized the universe were of course the Universal Royalty. The Silvers were not on that level yet, but it was a long-lasting advanced civilization, and they also had a special position in the universe. At the same time, this universe royalty was highly demanded in the slave market, so they were the perfect prey for the scavengers. The Silvers were rich, so the reward would undoubtedly be insanely high. Hurles, who was short on cash, was slightly moved. He had to try and convince Black Star to seize this opportunity to earn free money. Black Star, the Silvers are willing to pay a hefty sum. They are currently holding a massive recruitment for mercenaries. This is a good opportunity to make money, said Hurlis in a deep voice. Hurlis had not been doing anything for the few days prior, and he was in a hurry to make money. Thus, he had notified Hanzio of the news the moment that he heard. However, Hanzio shook his head. The Silvers are indeed quite generous with their reward, but this isn't an assignment we can take on. Large mercenary groups such as the Sky Ring Army will fight tooth and nail to take on the job. We won't even get a chance to compete for it, but we should at least try. There has to be a chance. The mercenary game was full of competition. The large, higher-end mercenary groups could easily get the big jobs. The clients trusted in their reputation and credibility rating. This time was no exception. Only those big-name mercenary groups had gone to answer the Silver's recruitment posts. After sorting out his equipment and paying the fees for using the repair room, he left for the Mercenary Alliance's lobby. There was a sea of people here, and there were many more mercenaries than the usual. They were probably there due to the Silver's recruitment notice and wanted to try their luck. Hanzio switched on the mercenary interface and saw the recruitment post sent out by the Silvers at the very top of the notice board. However, he got a shock immediately after opening up the message. Minimum credibility points, 400. 400. We don't even have half that number. Hanzio was speechless. What is this? Are my dreams going to be crushed before I can even dream? Hey, Black Star. Just as he was about to leave, someone suddenly called over to him from the side. Hanzio turned around and saw the owner of the voice walk over, clad in a pure white battle suit with a surface so smooth that it was undoubtedly made out of some special alloy. Sky Ring's people. This person was wearing the Sky Ring Army's battle uniform and was a mercenary from Sky Ring. The Sky Ring Army was among the mercenary groups at the top of the food chain in the Shattered Star Ring. They had over 10,000 members, and the army head was even a Calamity grade class A super. They did business across numerous clusters such as the Colton Star Cluster and the Jellock Star Cluster. He should not have had anything to do with Sky Ring at the moment, so Hanzio was curious. What does Sky Ring want with me? You have a decent team. My division captain would like to discuss cooperation with you. Are you free now? Hanzio blinked. Cooperation. Doesn't sound too bad. However, with Sky Ring's power, there truly was no reason to look for a small team like his, unless Sky Ring was interested in something special of their group. Hanzio was able to guess the general reason for Sky Ring's interest in them. No doubt, they were probably interested in the fact that we don't die. Hanzio smiled in his mind. Looks like the gossiping between fellow mercenaries has done its job. Joining Sky Ring would guarantee them special privileges, and they would be able to enjoy Sky Ring's influence, which had been built up over the centuries. He could also gain access to many new shop items. But if the Black Star mercenary group worked under Sky Ring, they would cease to be their own faction. The long-term losses were too much to bear, and he was not willing to give up on having his own faction just for some short-term gains. Your offer is very attractive, but I'm not really interested in becoming part of another organization. Hanzio declined politely. The onlooking Sky Ring mercenaries all started to whisper among themselves after hearing that. He actually declined. There's only benefits to receive, so why wouldn't he accept? I didn't even hesitate when I was recruited. At this time, Hanzio suddenly changed the topic and asked, "It's only been a month since Black Star Mercenary Group was created, yet Sky Rings contacted us. Is it because we have the reviving ability?" Being an honest man, Gashley nodded and said, "Yes, it is. Although I'm not willing to join other mercenary groups, I feel we can be in a partnership. Sky Ring definitely takes on many dangerous missions. My group can accept tasks from Sky Ring and take on these dangerous missions with high risks of death." Gashley thought that having a partnership was not a bad idea even though he could not recruit Black Star. Sky Ring also had similar partnership relationships with other mercenary groups. There was a long list of records of these partners, who were like backups. In times of danger, Sky Ring could ask for help from these reliable partners anytime. The two discussed for a bit and agreed on their intentions on the partnership, which Gashley reported to the organization. After deciding the time and peer number, Hanzio went back to the stronghold and gathered all members. "We have a new job, so get ready. We will be leaving in a while," Hanzio said. The people's face turned bright. They were thrilled. Knowing that the mercenary group had growth potential, they had been looking forward to the next adventure, and it finally came after doing very little for so long. Hurlis pulled Hanzio aside privately and expressed his doubts. Hanzio, of course, did not have anything to hide. He told him about what had happened. "I see." Hurlis understood, admiring Hanzio discreetly. If he was the one to make contact, he probably would not have thought about suggesting a partnership. then they would have lost this opportunity. Although Hanzio was not strong enough in his eyes, his ability to catch opportunities astounded him. A person like this was more suitable as the captain. He came to the living area of the spaceship and realized that this spaceship had a battle simulation room. Using virtual technology to simulate various enemies and environments, one could experience the effect of battle training. While Hurles was having a good time slashing left and right, the enemies suddenly disappeared, and Hanzio opened the door and walked in. Hurles asked, "Why are you here?" Hanzio laughed and said, "It's boring to train alone. Come, let's spar." Hurles was very calm. Fighting an opponent one grade lower needed no preparation. Hanzio jumped high up into the air with a ferocious black scythe in his hand and descended from the sky, slashing down. He stepped back and dodged, then he saw Hanzio, who was on the ground. Many parts of his mechanical suit had become red hot, and his whole body was covered in white steam from the high temperature. The energy reaction level was shocking. "You're a grade B super." Hurles was stunned. "You were not this strong back in Seudal." Hanzio shrugged. "I've improved." Hanzio charged forward with large steps, and the ground shook. As he slashed again and again, the scythe and the battleship's slicing blade collided with each other rapidly. After fighting for a while, the exoskeleton armor was covered in damage, and Hurles had also been slashed by the scythe a few times. It was basically a draw. Clank. After one last collision between the weapons, the two distanced themselves from one another like they could reach each other's mind and stopped attacking at the same time. "Great fight." Hanzio laughed. Through this combat, he had a more direct understanding of his own combat power. Hanzio's combat power had earned Hurles approval. Hurles was much less worried about Hanzio's safety. Originally, when he realized that he was the strongest in the Black Star mercenary group, he had felt somewhat uncertain no matter what. Now that there was finally someone with the same level of combat power, Hurles' mindset had changed. To put it more directly, originally, he had thought that his teammates were burdens, but now they gradually turned into reliable friends. Players communicated with the other Sky Ring mercenaries often. When talking about their armor, the Sky Ring mercenaries displayed the effect of the Sky Ring armor. They were all products of compression technology. By pressing down on the triangular crystal on their chest, the humble Sky Ring combat suit would expand and become various full forms. It was truly gorgeous. The Sunil and Listy class armor paled in comparison, so the players were all shocked and jealous. Seeing that the players were tempted by their resources, the Sky Ring mercenaries tried to tempt the players privately by promising a free Sky Ring armor after joining Sky Ring. If their recruitment was successful, the recruiter would be rewarded as well. Recruiting members from other mercenary groups was a very common activity. It was free real estate. Many Sky Ring mercenaries also belonged to other mercenary groups originally, and they had been attracted to Sky Ring due to their better offer. However, this did not work on the players at all. Tempted did not mean shaken. They were still waiting for better things to appear in the mercenary group shop. One day, there might be Sky Ring armor in the Black Star shop too. Therefore, they were in no hurry. These players trusted Hanzio very much. The private invitations were all rejected, and the Sky Ring mercenaries were very surprised. They had not expected the mercenaries under Black Star to be so loyal, and shock naturally turned into respect for the group. At the same time, among some asteroid belt in the Fawn Galaxy, a few scavenger spaceships were moving stealthily. They kept the information disruption force field activated at all times, maintaining their stealth mode. This was the scavenger organization that had attacked the Silvers. It was a slave trader that often sold slaves. They were notorious for their ruthless acts in the Shattered Star Ring. The prisoners in the large cell immediately became riled up when they saw him. "Let me out. I'm an explorer of Holy Stone Civilization. How dare you detain me? Let me go now, or I will. Who are you going to sell us to?" The prisoners were very noisy, but Peggy ignored them completely. He had yet to do a routine interrogation after catching these Silvers. It was now time to test the goods. "What's this?" Peggy took the black bead from his subordinate and squeezed it. It was very hard, and the surface of the bead was emanating a deep light with a tint of magical glow. "Give it back to me. I'm an emissary of Dark Star. This belongs to the Dark Star. If you dare take it away, destruction and death will fall upon you." This man yelled angrily. "Dark Star." Peggy laughed coldly. "You did your homework well. Despite being far away in the Sea of Star Spirits, you know there's a Dark Star organization in our Shattered Star Ring. I didn't join Dark Star even though I'm a hybrid Godarin. You want to scare me. Do you think I'm easily fooled?" Peggy saw Dark Star as the great pioneer of liberation, and he had always wanted to join, but because Dark Star was too mysterious, he never could come into contact with them. If Dark Star gave him orders, he would willingly give his life. Boss, who are we selling them to? I've contacted the customer, Peggy said. We're going to Floating Dragon Island. The subordinate widened his eyes. That's that man's territory. The customer this time is that guy's subordinate, very generous with money. Peggy had a gloomy smile as he walked away. In the prison cell, this Silver was furious. He cursed in his mind, damn scavengers. Luckily, the secret message bead can only be opened with a password. They can't take out what's inside. Star Zone 4. Fawn. Planet number 122 was a planet without an owner or civilization. The Silvers that sent out the missions were camping there. Since their call for aid, numerous mercenary spaceships had arrived on this lifeless planet. Gashley's spaceship landed slowly, and Hanzio and the others swarmed out to look around. The base was filled with voices, most of them were mercenary groups. The Silvers' mission had attracted many renowned mercenaries in the Shattered Star Ring. You're finally here. A tall woman wearing hooded robe walked over. It was the 3-ring level Cotter, original name Goa, leader of the Sky Ring for this mission. This was a mage. Although Hanzio could not feel the magic flowing in her, he could feel the coldness from her. Seems like she's an ice element mage, Hanzio thought. They walked to the Silver's ship, and Goa explained the current situation. This Silver had spent a large sum to hire mercenaries to save his captured friends. He was very generous indeed, but the mercenaries still had yet to start. They were stuck at an awkward stage. No one knew the enemy's location. The scavengers that had attacked the Silvers were nowhere to be found, so no matter how many mercenaries gathered, there was nowhere to start. Such intelligence-lacking missions were very troublesome. The surviving Silver was very anxious, and he released new requirements. If anyone could provide effective location information, he would give a generous bonus. I want to suggest a reward. What do you want? Mechanic class advancement knowledge. Hanzio smiled. This was a good opportunity to make a request. The Silvers discussed for a while and agreed to Hanzio's request. Far away in the sea of star spirits, class advancement knowledges were not that precious, they were basically everywhere. He just had to tell a friend back there, and it could be sent over immediately. It would not even cost them anything. Upon getting the confirmation, Hanzio used his Destiny's Child card. His vision changed, entering a blurry image, and he saw some bits and pieces. After losing focus for a while, Hanzio's vision recovered. Destiny's Child's ability was very promising, so Hanzio already knew the customer's rough appearance. They just had to ask around, and they should be able to find the target. Floating Dragon Island. The crowd stopped their discussion instantly when they heard this. It was like someone pressed the mute button, and the mercenaries quietened down and exchanged looks. A tint of horror even appeared on their faces. Very possible. If there's any organization in the Shattered Star Ring unafraid of revenge, Floating Dragon Island is one of them. Wanted criminals can't get supplies from lawful civilizations' planets, but some neutral territories dare to take in galactic pirates, scavengers, and other criminals. Floating Dragon Island is one such neutral territory. Then isn't that a gathering ground of criminals? Why don't these civilizations just get rid of all of them at once? Hanzio seemed to have remembered something interesting. The edges of his lips rose up as he said, "The ruler of Floating Dragon Island is someone beyond Calamity Grade." Beyond Calamity Grade, which means higher than Grade A. The players' faces changed. They finally understood why these mercenaries all had such grave expressions. They knew absolutely nothing of the strong people of this grade. But Hanzio knew very clearly, if Grade A was a calamity at a planet scale, above Grade A was a whole new level, more than enough to become the king of an area through the galaxy. Not many civilizations wanted to mess with someone of this level. After settling everything, without further ado, Hanzio and the others boarded Skyring's spaceship and followed the 3 large mercenary groups to Floating Dragon Island. In an unknown region of the Shattered Star Ring was a Dark Star base, where the superiors of the Dark Star organization were having an emergency meeting. The carrier this time was kidnapped. Did Godera notice our plan? No, this is just an accident. The people over there chose the carrier to be a Silver, and he was kidnapped by a slave trader. That's good then. The intel shows that the fence location seems to be Floating Dragon Island. What do we do? Send people over to rob those bot slaves, find the carrier and retrieve the cargo. If outsiders don't have the password, they can't take out the mutation source and the super gene extractor inside. These 2 things cost the organization a lot, so they cannot be lost. Who do we send to carry out the mission? Since it's this important, he has yet to fail since joining Dark Star. Not long after, a stealth spaceship left the Dark Star base and headed toward Floating Dragon Island. The spaceships of the mercenary groups were about to land on the other side of Floating Dragon Island. This was a land that sailed in the universe like a galactic island. It had many stabilizers and accelerators at its base, and a translucent sphere covered the entire floating island, maintaining the atmosphere and gravity. The three large mercenary groups all wore uniforms, which attracted a lot of attention. Many criminals were openly sizing them up. The air was filled with hostility, sending chills down spines. Because they knew that there was danger everywhere, they had all equipped themselves fully back on the ship before they came. The three large mercenary groups did a wide range of businesses, so they had made quite a few enemies. Although these people were looking at them with hatred, they did not dare to do anything due to their fear of the name of these three large mercenary groups. On the other hand, Hanzio and the others who clearly did not belong to the three large mercenary groups attracted more attention. The leader of the pirates spat out phlegm, which happened to land on Maple Moon's armor as she was at the edge of the team. Their expression was fearless. Hanzio suddenly bent his legs and started his dash toward the group of galactic pirates. Without a single word, the scythe extended, and he slashed down. These pirates did not expect this at all. They fired hastily. Ding ding ding. Fire sparks flew, and the bullets were all deflected by Amphipter mechanical suit. Hanzio was like a grim reaper. He slashed sideways and cut 4 pirates into half, blood splashing onto the floor. As in neutral territory, there were not just criminals in the floating dragon island, there were also residents, workers, and troops that the ruler used to maintain security called the Dragon Guards. This was a chaotic place, but no matter what, they had to pay a tax when entering the island, representing their respect for the ruler. No one dared break this rule. Floating Dragon Island was a typical low-security area. Combat there was allowed, as long as residents and workers were not killed and buildings were not destroyed. The Dragon Guards would never bother about outsiders killing each other. Hanzio's sudden act of violence caused a chain reaction. The sound of machines sounded in the street, and the entire street's brutes raised their guns and aimed at him, looking ferocious as if they were going to rush forward anytime. At this time, all the people from the 3 large mercenary groups drew their weapons, not taking any steps back, and surrounded Hanzio to back him up. They displayed their strong attitude to protect their friends. The villains suddenly hesitated. Overcome by fear, they sheathed their weapons and backed off unwillingly. Hurles now understood what Hanzio meant by full resource utilization. They were acting together with the 3 huge mercenary groups, so they had the number advantage. They made a simple plan. Hanzio changed into the face simulator, took off his mechanical suit, and changed his clothes. He now looked like a captain of a galactic spaceship. This kind of customer was very common. The slave market was not dirty or messy, but luxurious and gorgeous instead. Any information about the slaves was displayed in books for customers to choose from. The floating Dragon Island had its middleman in the slave business. They bought slaves from scavengers and sold them to the large customers. I want to buy some slaves. As soon as he entered the market, Hanzio expressed his intention, disguising himself as a normal customer. A fatty approached and introduced him to slaves of different races. There were many varieties. I don't want these rough deformities, and I don't want these cheap low-class slaves. I want to see what rare species you have here. Do you not have anything worthy of such standard? At this time, a short and skinny guy walked over wearing luxurious clothes. His fingers and neck were covered in many expensive pieces of jewelry. He smiled and said, "Haha, of course, I have the good stuff here. Who are you?" Hanzio asked. Orlade, the manager of the slave market. Trust me, the things here can definitely satisfy your needs. The two of them took the lift to the bottom floor, and a white corridor full of twists and turns appeared in their vision. There was a pure white alloy gate every so often, and the gate had a small window in it. After walking to it, only then did Hanzio realize it was all single cells behind the gates. The corridor end came very soon, but there were no silvers in those 100 or so cells. Hanzio dry coughed and said, "Are there any other goods?" "Haha, looks like you're a picky customer. I love a challenge." Orlade laughed in a very exaggerated way, then snapped his fingers and said, "There's one last good product. She can definitely satisfy your requirements." The wall at the end of the corridor opened, showing a new space. Seeing that, Hanzio felt relieved. There was only one cell, and it did not look like it had silvers inside, which meant that these captives had yet to arrive on floating Dragon Island. He walked up, looked at the window curiously, and suddenly he stopped breathing completely subconsciously. Inside was a woman whose beauty was almost unbelievable. From the aesthetic standpoint of humans, she had an almost perfect face. The great mechanic Han was astounded by the very first look. This woman looked very young. She had long hair and covered in blurry stardust, she looked almost transcendent. She wore a self-destructive collar, so any strange movements would decimate her skull. Yet, this woman was very calm. Completely different from other slaves, she was neither numb nor enraged. She closed her eyes and sat in the corner, very relaxed, not caring about the situation that she was currently in at all. When he was shocked by her beauty, it had been a completely subconscious reaction. He got rid of this emotion very quickly, and after looking at her, he realized that he did not know this woman. Just as he was about to look elsewhere, a new mission was triggered in the interface. You have triggered the mission. Mission introduction. From your first look at her, these eyes were already printed on your heart and soul, mysterious like the fog. Like a dark well, a deep abyss, a voice appeared in your heart. You want to bring this woman away. Mission requirements. Save her from the slave market and stay by her side for 6 days. Reward. 1,800,000 experience. 1 unknown reward. Is this mission introduction an introduction to a love game? Han Zio was covered in goosebumps. Just one look triggered the mission. This woman was certainly not ordinary. What's special about her? Han Zio asked. The projector shows her body structure is not a normal universe race. Horlade said. She has the blood of some kind of an ancient creature in her body, and no match could be found. It's unknown what race hybrid is she. Through the energy detector examination, the energy reaction in her body far exceeds normal creatures, and it fluctuates. The lowest is at least at grade C super level, and the highest even went beyond grade B. There are some problems with her memory, so she can't remember most of her experiences, only language, but her intelligence level is not like an infant. She has very high intelligence and can speak and communicate. She does not search for who she is, why is she here, or what is she going to do. She does not have that curiosity and impulse, and she does not panic at all from not having memories, like a person who's dreaming, half awake. She's staying here peacefully, without any intention of searching for her memories. Her life form is very special, and it seems like she does not have instincts or desires. She needs neither to consume food nor excrete, such a unique being. Han Zio's eyes sparkled. The stranger this woman was, the bigger the secret it contained. How much is she? A standard businessman's smile appeared on Horlade's face. Not expensive at all. Only 300,000 enas. Farewell. Han Zio turned on the spot and left with an expressionless face. Are you learning from me? Why does a profiteer have to make life hard for another profiteer? Horlade chased hastily and yelled, we can negotiate if you feel it's too expensive. How about 200,000? 100,000? No, 50,000. Okay, count it as I'm making a loss. I will sell it to you at 10,000. That's the lowest. Han Zio was full of doubts. A discount of 97% off. Why would there be such a thing? Something strange was going on. Thinking of the 6 days and the mission requirement, he was alarmed. After some consideration, Han Zio temporarily placed this mission aside and continued his testing. Now that's a good price, but I still want to buy other rare slaves. Do you not have any other goods? Horlade grinned and said, haha, you're quite lucky. There's going to be a new batch of rare goods coming in very soon. When they come, you can take a look again. This batch of new goods should be the silvers. Luckily, they're not here yet. The ambush plan still has a chance. That's great. I will come to look at the goods again and buy that Arashia at the same time. When he took over this slave market, Arashia had already been locked here. The last owner had told him that there was no need for special treatment, just sell her normally. However, there was one customer who bought Arashia, and a few days after, Arashia appeared out of nowhere in the prison cell again, giving him quite a shock. The customer rushed back in rage, and only then did he know that Arashia would suddenly disappear after being brought away, then return to the cell in an extremely strange way. Horlade asked the previous owner, then he came to know Arashia had already existed not long after Floating Dragon Island was built. The owner back then reported the situation to the superiors, and this message went to the ears of Floating Dragon Island's ruler. That beyond grade a boss came to take a look, and with his belief of if he didn't understand it, kill it, he wiped Arashia out, turning her into ash. Yet, a few days later, Arashia appeared once again as if nothing had happened. The boss then came to kill her once again, and after repeating for more than 30 times, a conclusion was made. This was a space wonder, an unexplainable strange phenomenon. Through observation, only one Arashia would exist at one time. If she died, she would revive again after some time. But the memory of the time that she spent before she died would disappear, going back to her original state of amnesia. If she left this cell, she would also disappear from the other places. No matter what building was there, she would go back to where the cell was. From the concluded pattern, whether she was dead or bought, Arashia would not leave there for more than 6 days. I've asked around, and the silvers have yet to arrive. Upon returning to the team, Han Zio shared the intel. Great, the rescue plan can be carried out. Time is scarce, and we don't know when will the scavengers arrive. Since we don't know their identity, it's best to split up and lay an ambush on every route toward the slave market. There is only one chance, and we can't miss out on any suspicious target. It's a must to save the silver captives before they are sold to the market. They decided their division of labor for the ambush. The ambush areas extended from the pier all the way into the slave market, and there had to be mercenaries in every street and every intersection. By using the distance from the slave market as a measurement, the ambush could be divided into 4 layers. The first layer was the furthest away, near the pier. The fourth layer was the closest to the slave market, right beside the market. The 3 leaders had considered that, unlike them, Black Star was not unafraid of criminals, so Han Zio was in charge of the 3rd layer. This location was a little safer than the pier full of criminals, and the last layer locked down by Goa's team. With some simple disguises, every team went to their position, set up the ambush, and waited. Not far away, an arms fight was underway between 2 groups of brutes that looked like galactic pirates. Another fight. How many times has this happened in the past 2 days? Han Zio shook his head. At this time, the brutes in the midst of the intense fight fired a cannon in the wrong direction, collapsing a small half of a house. It made quite a loud noise and killed many residents who were watching the show. In a split second, all the brutes stopped fighting, and terror appeared on their faces. They ran in all directions without caring about anything else. Not long after, the sound of a flying device shooting across the sky could be heard. 3 small, low-altitude flying devices, which were about 8 meters long, had appeared. They were covered in full dark golden color, designed like a dragon spreading its wings. A tiny dragon symbol was carved on the ship body. They were the Dragon Guard's transportation. The 3 flying devices caught up to the brutes, and rows of cannons extended from below their bases, which shot out golden lasers, penetrating these brutes with ease. After chasing for a while and killing more than half of the escaping brutes, only then did the Dragon Guards turn around and leave. Only the Dragon Guards were allowed to operate combat flying devices in floating Dragon Island. If civilians were killed, the Dragon Guards would be out to enforce the law immediately. Han Zio had seen scenes like that a few times over the past 2 days, and he felt that this rescue plan was really dangerous. If they could not save the captives quickly and accurately, the risk would increase largely if they got stalled. At this time, Goa sent him a message. Blade's people locked onto the suspected target, action. Han Zio did not have any objections, so he summoned all Black Star members, split up, and headed toward the ambush location given by Serlini. It happened to be the junction between the dock and the city area, a very chaotic place. Peggy walked down from the spaceship, thinking that they were going to make a huge fortune. These scavengers were filled with excitement. Peggy was not that excited, however. He brought the team and headed toward Horlade's slave market. His pupils constricted almost into a vertical line, and his head gradually turned flat like it was going to turn into a snake head. The snake scales on his body became clearer and harder, and he opened his mouth and flicked his forked tongue in the air. Peggy was a shape-shifting Esper. Some kind of snake blood in his body had gone through atavistic changes, so he had extremely sharp senses. He noticed that he was being followed and a hint of murderous intent in the atmosphere. His strong intuition told him he was going to meet something if he kept walking ahead. My dear Horlade, I've arrived at Floating Dragon Island. Come to retrieve the goods yourself this time. What happened to you? You normally bring the goods yourself. I noticed murderous intent. Someone is on to me, Peggy said impatiently. It might be related to the captives. I feel someone wants to cut off our goods. I'll wait for you in the spaceship. It's too troublesome for me to retrieve the goods, Horlade said unhappily. I don't want to go to the dock filled with pirates and scavengers. Then you can invite the Dragon Guards to protect you. You're the ruler's subordinate. After all, caution, the target did not continue ahead. According to the route, he seems to be going back to the spaceship. Did the deal go south with the buyer? Porter doubted. This isn't good. That scavenger is called Peggy, and his Esper power is shapeshifting into a snake. He has extremely strong senses, almost like short-term foresight, so he might have noticed danger. We attack straight away and make the rescue. We can't have the 2 parties meet. We have limited time, so it's best to act immediately. The original plan had not been bad, but reality was full of unexpected changes. Serlini felt that Han Zio was right. The only way now was to attack urgently. Peggy narrowed his eyes. Fortunately, he had been cautious. He ordered his subordinates to quickly pull out their guns and fire, and as the cunning man that he was, he secretly shot other brutes to pull other groups in. The dock was a large square, and there were no residents. This was the most dangerous place. The mercenaries exchanged fire with Peggy and his men, and quite a number of stray bullets hit the brutes nearby, bringing waves of growls. The dock was most chaotic. Groups of brutes were affected and joined into the battle. An intense scrimmage soon broke out. The mercenaries' most important mission was to rescue the captives and leave. It was a race against time. The players showed their powers, tearing open a gap ahead like a sharp knife. Hurlus swept with his battleship slicing blade, and anyone below grade B was all thrown to the side. All the strong enemies were stopped by his teammates, so Hanzio could concentrate on the objective. Peggy's people were retreating to the spaceship, and there were only a few dozen meters left. With the energy from the power burst, Hanzio turned all the mobility modules to their maximum output. The ground cracked, and he shot up into the sky. Like a mirage, his mechanical palms grabbed Peggy's snake head, slapping Peggy onto the ground. His snake body disintegrated into tens of thousands of small snakes and spread out. This was a special way to use Peggy's shapeshifting Esper power and his last rope to hang on to save his life. He had escaped many deadly crises by relying on this ability. Hanzio's punch missed, and he saw the small snakes scattering in an instant, blending into the chaotic battlefield. He shook his head. His goal was to rescue the prisoners, so there was no time to waste. He had to put away the thought of chasing. He turned around and defeated Peggy's subordinates, snatching the metal boxes with the prisoners inside at a crucial moment. Peggy's scavengers lost their will to fight and scattered. Seeing this, the mercenaries of Blades and Purple Gold was rejoicing. Serlini said, "Send the people back to our spaceship immediately. Do not continue to fight. Withdraw from the battlefield quickly." Snatching the silvers meant that half of the mission was completed. They changed direction, aiming to return to the mercenary spaceships and leave floating Dragon Island immediately. The mercenaries turned from offensive to defensive, protecting the boxes of prisoners through the chaotic battlefield. At this time, 5 Dragon Guard flying devices appeared. Horlade was in the leading flying device. When Peggy was attacked, Horlade had immediately been informed. Knowing that the goods that he wanted had been cut off, Horlade had become very anxious. He had immediately spent some money and invited a Dragon Guard team captain that he knew, who picked him up the flying device and quickly dashed toward the dock. "Captain Theon, these mercenaries robbed the things I wanted. Don't let them escape." Horlade looked down on the battlefield and immediately saw the conspicuous mercenaries. He was gnashing his teeth in anger. Beside him was the Dragon Guard's small team captain Theon, wearing their uniform. Theon gave a faint smile and said, "Don't worry, just brutes causing trouble. No one can fight us on floating Dragon Island. All units, fire." At this time, a laser hit near the Black Star mercenary group, causing an explosion, and a few players were blasted away, including Lai Ji. Lai Ji was on the ground, his bum hurting. He was about to stand up when he suddenly caught a glimpse of a black bead on the floor. When Peggy shapeshifted and tore his clothes apart, the black bead that he had taken from the silver had also fallen out, rolling onto the battlefield. "What's this?" Lai Ji picked up the black bead, and a notification popped up from the interface. "You have received an unknown item. Giving it to a special character will give you a very high reward, or you can take it to be identified." Unknown item. Should be something good. He just did not know where it came from. Lai Ji's eyes flashed. He hid the bead secretly without informing anyone and went back to the team with a plain expression. "This team of Dragon Guards is together with Horlade," Goa hastily said in the communication channel. "Their target is the silvers as well." Serlini's expression was not looking good. If they surrendered, since the guards and Horlade had already made a deal, the silvers would still be taken away and given to the buyer, which meant that the rescue mission would have failed. "As long as the Dragon Guards can be kept under control, the problem will be solved," Hanzio said in a low voice. "Are you crazy? Killing the Dragon Guards is the biggest crime there is here. In this territory, committing a crime and attacking the law enforcers were a completely different thing. With that beyond grade a boss here, even if these Dragon Guards were mostly normal people, they could do whatever they wanted to the brutes and the wanted criminals. I never said anything about killing or injuring. We have an ice mage here, she can freeze their flying devices." Not waiting for Serlini to respond, Goa brought the people and arrived at the dock. She immediately said, "I'm attacking." Without any delay, her eyes suddenly turned into snow-white color, and a magic symbol appeared on her forehead. She murmured the spell, and the magic ring on her pale white fingers was flashing. The magic energy in the air gathered, fused, condensed, and formed. The magic language was deconstructed and then reconstructed into the laws of nature, changing reality. Suddenly, a large amount of low-temperature water vapor appeared in the air. Frost spread out from under Goa's feet, extending all the way to near the flying device. 5 ice pillars rose from the ground and captured the flying devices like claws. The low temperature made the flying devices shut down. The flying devices continued to fly forward with their inertia, and the ice pillars extended with them, turning them into ice sculptures. The ice pillar became the bridge between the ground and the flying devices, freezing the 5 flying devices in midair. Goa was a grade B mage, so she had a very strong control. Although the flying devices were frozen, nothing was hurt or destroyed. The driver of the aircraft pressed around on the control panel in panic. All systems are temporarily out of order, restarting, hiss, so cold. Theon was furious. How dare they fight back? Report to the above. Request backup. Don't let them escape. Since what was done had already been done, the mercenaries could only seize the opportunity to run away. They gathered and boarded their own spaceships. Like before, Hanzio boarded Sky Rings. The pilot, who did not take part in the battle earlier, had started the spaceship long ago. When everyone had boarded the spaceship, it slowly rose and flew away from floating Dragon Island. The Blade's shapeshifting scout had confirmed that there was the smell of silvers in the boxes long ago. When they opened the boxes, as expected, inside were 15 silvers, hugging each other and cowering in the corner with terror on their faces. Boom! Suddenly, the spaceship trembled violently, and they almost fell down. The pilot said hastily, "SHT, Floating Dragon Island has sent spaceships after us." Their expressions dropped. Activating jump engine, power 2%, 7%, 14%, 83%, powered up successfully. Starting pre-jump warm-up. Just 1 second before they entered the jump, the mercenary group spaceships became stationary without any sign. All energy and inertia disappeared without a trace, and the mercenaries did not even feel any vibration. Suddenly, the air inside the spaceship started buzzing. It was like everywhere was filled with sound, turning into a horrifying wave of sounds, almost deafening. Not only did they started to wobble, they even fell onto the ground. You people attacked my adorable subordinates right in my house, and yet you want to leave this easily. The mercenaries' spaceships flew backward from the same route like they had been grabbed by an invisible, enormous hand. All thrusters stopped working, and no matter how the driver tried to control the spaceship, it was all useless. The players were shocked. They did not know what exactly was happening. The silvers were just as confused and shocked. Freedom was right before them, and the enemy's spaceships had already been shaken off. Why were they all controlled all of a sudden? The faces of the mercenaries had already changed long ago. "She's here," Serlini said with a very long face. She was glancing through the people with curiosity. This woman had many names: Floating Dragon Island's ruler, Land Ripper, Absolute Power, and so on. She was the creator and ruler of Floating Dragon Island, Ames. Ames was a force field esper. The strength of her force field could even tear apart land to create Floating Dragon Island, so controlling a few small spaceships was a piece of cake. The war was a double-edged sword. Countless talented grade A supers died, but at the same time, the war was also a catalyst. The potential of those who survived would be forced out to the maximum extent. Toward the ending stage of the war, there was finally one super that broke through grade A. It was a completely different level, and it shocked the world. The civilizations never thought the strength of an individual could reach such a level that could match up to the strong armies of the 3 large civilizations. Although it was still small compared to the endlessly vast galactic battlefield, no matter how strong the group strength was, it was not as shocking as when an individual had this level of power. The existence of an individual beyond grade A was intimidation on its own, and this was one of the many reasons that lead the 3 large civilizations to stop the war. When peace came, the existence of beyond grade A individuals still had a very deep meaning, and their position was very high. Gradually, the grades above grade A gained detailed divisions. 1 grade higher was grade S, and there were even higher grades. However, people still called supers above grade A beyond grade A. It was a memorial in history, and a respect for the strong. In the current galaxy calendar, there were only 4 known beyond grade A supers in Shattered Star Ring, all with fame, glory, and countless titles. Ames was mostly known as, containing both the meaning of her throne made of void dragon skeletons and the creator of Floating Dragon Island, which was the most famous thing that she had done. The dragon guards brought everyone to the center of the Floating Dragon Island, and the mercenaries had no choice but to follow. At least Ames did not kill them immediately, so there might still be hope. The center of the Floating Dragon Island was Ames' residence, a huge fortress-like palace with dragon bone decorations everywhere. They passed one room after another until they reached the luxurious hall, waiting to be dealt with. After some time, Ames floated in from the side gate of the hall. The throne stopped before them. She held her cheeks and said casually, "You attacked my subordinates. Although there was no injury or casualty, I need to punish you." "Wilsander, what's our rule?" Someone walked out from the side. "According to the rules, all who fight back will be executed." The people all became nervous. Ames nodded and said, "Then the people of Skyring, Blades, and Purple Gold shall be imprisoned. Tell their army captain to pay a ransom." Wilsander coughed and said cautiously, "The rules say executed." "My words are the rules," Ames said coldly, showing her dominance. Feeling wronged, Wilsander's eyes twitched. "Then why did you ask me?" With an innocent look on her face, Ames blinked. "I was just asking randomly." She basically did not do any management and had forgotten what rules she had set before. She only asked because she felt like it, and she changed it as she liked. She was indeed very willful. "Contact your captain and tell them to make the payment, then I will let you go." Ames had a bit of a relationship with the 3 large mercenary groups. She occasionally hired them to do some stuff. The 3 armies never asked money for it, and every time, the captain personally did the things for her, all to create a good relationship with her. As the saying went, don't slap someone with a smile. Ames did not want to make things difficult for the people of the 3 large mercenary groups. Hearing this, Goa, Serlini, and Porter heaved sighs of relief simultaneously. They did not know that Ames knew their captain. They only felt that they had escaped death. However, Ames turned to look at Han Zio with a playful face and said, "Now it's your turn. If you have nothing much to say, I'll start attacking." Unlike the 3 large mercenary groups, this small mercenary group was a nobody. There was no need to give them special treatment. The atmosphere became tense, and the emotions of the 3 large mercenary groups changed. These mercenaries were not unaffected. They had fought alongside each other and had already made a connection with each other. They could not watch their comrades get killed in front of their eyes, and they all became anxious. The air around became stagnant. It was Ames' force field starting to gather. Boy, this differential treatment is way too obvious. Hurles felt like his bladder was shivering. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.